Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel now. I've been wanting to make this video for quite some time now and talk about this because this has arguably been the most talked about thing of this election, Project 2025. What is it? Now obviously, if you have been paying attention to this election, you may have heard of Project 2025 be uttered multiple times, especially when talking about the Republican presidential candidate, Donald Trump, and him being tied to it, despite him having his own platform, Agenda 47, which we will talk about a little bit here. But Project 2025 is something that has been talked about a lot, especially when talking about Trump, because of course a lot of what's being said has quite a few people concerned, obviously, because of what it proposes. So if you guys don't know what Project 2025 is, Project 2025 is an initiative that was created by an American conservative think tank known as the Heritage Foundation, which was created around sometime last year. It was initially designed to be a roadmap to create a fully conservative government in the event that Trump gets reelected and to do a complete and total overhaul of the US government entirely. It proposes reclassifying tens of thousands of federal civil service workers as political appointees in order to replace them with people loyal to the president. Proponents of the initiative argue that it aims to dismantle what they perceive as a vast, unaccountable, and predominantly liberal government bureaucracy. The initiative also seeks to infuse the government and society with conservative Christian values. Additionally, it seeks to reform the federal government's role in education by curbing curriculum content related to race, gender, and social issues and increasing parental control. Another focus is tax reform, advocating for reduced tax rates and simplified brackets to encourage economic growth. Project 2025 also advocates for a national abortion ban without any exceptions, even if the child or the mother is at risk if one is not performed, and other planned initiatives include abolishing the Department of Education, ending independence of the DOJ, and various other issues. The initiative has been criticized by civil rights groups for its approach on climate change, social justice, and public health, its legality and feasibility, policies that they argue could restrict voting rights, roll back environmental regulations, and reduce protections for LGBTQ+ individuals, and the risk that it will increase inflation. Critics, including the ACLU, claim that aspects of Project 2025 could infringe on constitutional rights, particularly in areas related to surveillance, free speech, freedom of religion, separation of powers, and protest rights. Some columnists have even described it as quote-unquote fascist, tyrannical, and/or authoritarian. Now, I actually got this response straight from ChatGPT because, if you want to know what Project 2025 is summarized, you can just ask ChatGPT, what is Project 2025, and it will just spit out this unbiased, clear answer about what it is. Now, obviously, I didn't go through the entire thing of what it entails. I don't want to bore you. I don't want this video to go way too long. I'm trying to keep this, below 15 minutes. But you pretty much get the basic idea of what Project 2025 is. And you see why a lot of Democrats and a lot of people on the left are sounding the alarms about it. Because when you really think about it, if you look at the entire initiative, if you have enough time to look at the entire initiative, the best way I could describe it, it's basically like the conservative equivalent of the Great Reset. And you also notice that the Democrats have been tying this initiative to Trump, despite the fact that he has his own initiative, Agenda 47, which is completely different from Project 2025. There's a ton of key differences between the two. For starters, it does not advocate for a national abortion ban. Trump thinks that the states should be able to decide that issue on their own. Agenda 47 in no way calls for the abolition of Social Security. That's ridiculous. And Project 2025 was not Donald Trump's creation. Again, as I mentioned, it was created by a conservative think tank known as the Heritage Foundation. Yes, they do have ties to Trump, and Trump has stated numerous times that he has his own initiative put in place when he wins the election. He also states that there's just a lot of things in Project 2025 that he disagrees with, including the national abortion ban. Virtually every single American already rejects Project 2025 and what it entails. I find 5 issues with Project 2025 that I see as reasons why nobody supports it and reasons why it will never happen in the United States. Issue number 1. it is ridiculously unconstitutional. There are some things in it that violates the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and arguably even the 10th Amendment. There's a lot of things in it that go against separation of powers, and I get this a lot on X/Twitter every time I criticize the proposal, and I always end up mentioning that this will never happen in the United States because there's just so much of the Constitution that is being violated in this initiative, that the Supreme Court or all the federal courts would just shut it down immediately if it's ever proposed. It would almost guarantee get shut down by the courts. No way it would happen. So I get these replies every time I say, well, the courts are going to strike it down anyway. People go in and say, well, what if they abolish the Supreme Court and fill it with Trump loyalists? Then there's nothing you can do about it. Not exactly. Proposals like these still have to go through the Senate. If anybody tries to bypass separation of powers, they get removed immediately. So that's one thing. It is completely unconstitutional. The second thing is that it would get struck down by the courts immediately. Those two are tied together. My third issue with it is that it goes against all of the ideas and principles that the Founding Fathers envisioned of what the United States of America is. A lot of the stuff that Project 2025 proposes are just some of the many reasons why our Founding Fathers declared independence from the British. It wasn't solely just about taxes on tea. That definitely was one of the top issues. It was a multitude of other things. The reason why the English went to North America was to practice their religion freely. Rhode Island, I believe, was one of the first colonies to propose the idea of separation of church and state, if I remember correctly, or I think it was New Hampshire. I don't know, one of those states. So it wasn't just solely taxes, it wasn't solely just religious freedom, it was pretty much everything. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms. It was mainly to fight against tyranny and the right to be free and to live free. That's why the American Revolution was fought. And when the Constitution was being written, all of those freedoms and liberties were kept in mind, which is exactly why the Bill of Rights were ratified. The Founding Fathers wanted to make sure that goal remains part of the United States until whenever the fuck heat death happens. Project 2025 does not scream freedom. Because again, as I keep mentioning over and over again, there is just so much wrong with it. It basically eliminates separation of powers, checks and balances, and a boatload of constitutional rights. If you were to show this to any of the Founding Fathers, they hang you. Even people who have wrote it and created it have claimed that the Founding Fathers were too liberal for them. So it's no wonder that Trump doesn't want to associate with it. Not even Trump and his supporters want to associate with it. I get that the heritage foundations are, trying to help, but the average American doesn't support any of this. Nobody wants abortion to be banned nationwide, nobody wants the First Amendment to be infringed on, and nobody wants the federal government to have too much power. That's why the 10th Amendment is there, to give states just as much power to do their own things. And people want religious freedom. And while we're on the topic of the whole conservative Christian values thing, that's another issue that I have with it too. Like with education, yes, I get it, nobody wants critical race theory to be taught in schools. DEI is obviously unpopular. And of course the whole alphabet soup that we see as well, that even some members of the LGBTQ don't even like. 99% of all Americans can agree religion and politics should be kept out of schools at all times. What does Project 2025 want? Well, let's go and teach all kids K through 12 about Jesus Christ. Again, going against separation of church and state. Also going against freedom of religion in the First Amendment. This is also a wildly unpopular thing from Project 2025. This is no different from kids being taught critical race theory in schools. Religion and politics should be kept out of schools, full stop. Like, not even the average Christian supports having Christianity being taught in all schools. Because, the United States already has a huge diversity of religions, including Hindus, Jews, and Muslims. How do you think those people will feel if you install Christianity into the government and the educational apparatuses? And not just that, it also becomes a huge interdenominational issue as well. Like, what if the teacher happens to be a Catholic and she happens to have students that are all Protestants, and there's like 3 that are Methodists and 2 that are Presbyterian, and the principal also happens to be Eastern Orthodox? You see what I mean? So it's not just the fact that there are people that have different religions. There are Christians in this country that have completely different denominations. Not every Christian in this country is Southern Baptist or Episcopalian. So as much as I heavily disagree with Project 2025, much like with pretty much everybody else in this country, it is also being overblown as well. For instance, interracial marriage is not going to be banned under Project 2025. Like, I've been hearing nonstop claims like, oh my god, if Trump gets elected, interracial marriage is going to be banned. Again, not realistic to happen here, especially now. And of course, I keep sounding like a goddamn broken record each time I say this. This is not his plan. He doesn't want to associate with it. He has completely distanced himself from it. He already has his plan put in place, and he already knows what he's going to do. And I already know what's going to be done. Both Trump and JD Vance are not associated with Project 2025 and disagree with most of what it entails. And certainly it's not going to turn the United States into the Handmaid's Tale. Obviously, it's not that extreme. So yeah, Project 2025 is nothing but a right-wing pipe dream that will never ever happen. It's too unpopular. It's wickedly unconstitutional. The courts would strike it down immediately. It goes against the principles that the founders envision for the United States. And no matter what you do, you cannot enforce it in any way, especially with regards to different denominations, when talking about conservative Christian values. I really haven't seen that many Republicans support it. The vast majority of them support Agenda 47, not Project 2025. And that's actually a good thing for the Republicans, because if they were to tie themselves to Project 2025, their support would drop like a rock almost immediately. If they were to enact Project 2025 once the GOP is in power, their approval rating would sink down to Challenger deep. I really realistically cannot think of anyone that I know who actually supports this and actually wants Project 2025 to be a reality. Not even some of my Trump voting friends. I really don't see this happening in the United States. I really don't think that this is the right way moving forward. It's not that I don't like it. It's just so unconstitutional. It's not America first. America first means not just putting the American people and the American citizens first. America first means Constitution first, freedom first, liberty first. Any of the promises of the U.S. Constitution, no matter who you are, where you come from, you and your constitutional rights always come first. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it always comes first. And Project 2025 doesn't do that. Anyway, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the little notification bell. Be sure to follow me on all my social medias. Links are in the description below. Share this video around with your friends, families, boyfriends, girlfriends, enemies, whomever. Definitely helps me out a lot, helps the video grow, and helps grow the channel if you were to share this with whomever you know. Those were just my, 2 cents on this whole Project 2025 thing. Mostly, I think this is fear-mongering because, Trump does not align himself with it. There is no way it will be passed. Anyone who sides with it is nuts. And it's a good thing that this already is wickedly unpopular and that nobody likes it. If Trump gets elected, I don't think it will ever happen. Because he has Agenda 47, which is completely and totally different from Project 2025. So that's the one silver lining about it, but I'd like to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And as always, like, subscribe, ring notifications, and until then, take care, talk soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. You're awesome.